Have you ever noticed how much energy we can waste holding on to anger or resentment? I remember a time, not too long ago, when I found myself constantly upset. Every small inconvenience, every disagreement, every little disappointment, I would turn it into a story where someone else was at fault. At first, it seemed normal, even justified. After all, if people treated us unfairly, wasn't it natural to point the finger? But over time, I realized that carrying around that weight was exhausting. I felt tired more often, my moods were unpredictable, and I didn't enjoy life the way I used to. It wasn't just about being upset, it was about how that blame affected me physically and emotionally. I'd wake up thinking about past wrongs, replay conversations in my head, and go through the day with a cloud hanging over me. And here's the truth, I wasn't changing anyone else's behavior. I was just hurting myself, holding on to something I couldn't control. That's when I started thinking differently. I asked myself a simple but powerful question: what if I stopped blaming others? What if I took responsibility for my own emotions and reactions, instead of expecting the world to behave the way I thought it should? I'll be honest, it sounded almost impossible at first. I had spent decades believing that life's problems were caused by other people's mistakes, and suddenly, I was being asked to turn the mirror on myself. But that choice marked the beginning of a transformation I didn't expect. The first step was recognizing the difference between responsibility and blame. Blame is about pointing fingers and holding on to anger. Responsibility is about acknowledging our part in any situation and deciding how we respond. I started noticing moments in my day when I could choose not to blame, when someone cut me off in traffic, when a friend forgot an appointment, or even when my own health slowed me down. Instead of thinking, "Why is this happening to me? This isn't fair," I began asking, "What can I do to respond calmly? How can I protect my peace?" It was subtle at first, but the shift in perspective was powerful. Another thing I learned is that letting go of blame doesn't mean accepting bad behavior from others. It doesn't mean pretending that unfairness or hurtful actions are okay. It simply means that I refuse to let those actions control my inner peace. For example, I used to stew for days when someone spoke harshly to me. I'd replay it endlessly, feeling more bitter each time. But one day, I decided to respond differently. I acknowledged that their words reflected their own issues, not my worth. I chose to let the anger pass, and surprisingly, I felt lighter, almost as if a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. It wasn't just emotional relief either. I started noticing that my relationships improved, too. When I stopped blaming, I could communicate more openly and calmly. Instead of reacting defensively, I listened. Instead of retaliating, I responded with clarity. People around me noticed, and the dynamics changed. Conflicts became shorter, misunderstandings were resolved faster, and I felt more connected and less isolated. And here's something beautiful that happened along the way: I started healing old wounds. Blame has a way of keeping the past alive. It holds onto grudges, regrets, and disappointments. But as I stopped pointing fingers, I realized I could finally release those old hurts. I could forgive, not necessarily for the sake of others, but for myself, to reclaim my peace and joy. Each time I let go, it felt like a little weight had been lifted, a little more light entered my life. I also learned that self-reflection is a critical part of this journey. Stopping blame isn't just about ignoring others' faults, it's about understanding our own patterns. Why did certain things trigger me so strongly? Why did I feel justified in anger? By exploring these questions gently, without judgment, I began to understand myself better. I realized that many of the frustrations I held onto weren't really about what others did, they were about my own expectations, fears, and unhealed emotions. Recognizing that was both humbling and liberating. And that brings me to another important point: patience. Changing the habit of blaming doesn't happen overnight. I still catch myself sometimes, especially in stressful moments. But now, instead of sinking into resentment, I pause. I breathe. I remind myself that my peace is more valuable than being right or proving someone else wrong. Each small choice to let go of blame adds up over time, creating a life that feels lighter, calmer, and more joyful. So, how did I begin this shift in my own life? It started with simple awareness. I began noticing when blame crept into my thoughts and gently redirected my mind. I started journaling, writing down situations where I felt wronged, and asking myself, what can I control here? How can I respond differently? I practiced gratitude daily, reminding myself of the good, instead of obsessing over perceived slights. These small, consistent steps began to make a profound difference. By the time I reached this stage, I realized something extraordinary. Life began to feel more manageable, more peaceful. The world didn't necessarily change, but my experience of it did. I was no longer a prisoner of others' actions. I was free to live, to enjoy, and to heal. And this is why I want to share this message with you, because it's never too late to start letting go of blame and taking back your peace. Now that we've explored how recognizing blame, practicing self-reflection, and choosing responsibility can begin the healing process, we can move deeper into the journey of building emotional resilience, finding forgiveness, and embracing life without resentment. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. When I started truly letting go of blame, I began to notice something surprising. It wasn't just about freeing myself from anger, it was about reclaiming time and energy I didn't even realize I was wasting. Think about it. How many hours have we spent replaying arguments in our minds, wondering why someone treated us unfairly, or feeling bitter over something that happened months or even years ago? All that time and energy could have been used to enjoy a walk in the park, connect with family, or simply savor a quiet moment with a cup of tea. One of the first lessons I learned was how closely blame and expectations are linked. Often, we blame others because they haven't met the expectations we set, expectations about how they should behave, how life should unfold, or how our day should go. The more rigid our expectations, the easier it is to feel wronged and point fingers. I realized that the key wasn't changing other people, it was adjusting my own expectations. By accepting that life isn't perfect and people aren't perfect, I could approach each situation with curiosity instead of judgment. That shift alone brought an unexpected sense of peace. Another thing that changed for me was how I viewed mistakes, both mine and others. I used to think that if someone hurt me, they were deliberately trying to make my life difficult. But as I practiced letting go of blame, I began to see that most people act from their own limitations, fears, or misunderstandings. That perspective doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it changes the emotional weight we carry. I could witness mistakes, even painful ones, without letting them define my mood or my day. Forgiveness became another cornerstone of this journey. And I don't mean forgiveness in the way we often hear it described, like saying, "It's okay, what you did was fine." No, real forgiveness is about choosing not to let someone else's actions control your emotional state. It's about deciding that you are more important than your resentment, that your peace is worth more than being right. When I forgave, not for them, but for me, I felt a profound release. It was almost like stepping out of a dark, heavy room into the sunlight. I also discovered that setting boundaries was essential. Letting go of blame doesn't mean we accept mistreatment. It means we protect our energy while staying compassionate. I began to say no more often, not with guilt, but with clarity. If someone's behavior threatened my peace, I learned to step back without internalizing their actions. This simple act of self-respect became a form of healing in itself. I noticed that the people who truly mattered respected these boundaries, and for those who didn't, I stopped wasting my energy trying to change them. At this stage, I realized the ripple effect of stopping blame extends beyond ourselves. Families, friendships, even casual relationships become calmer and more fulfilling. When we approach life without judgment, others often respond differently. Conversations become more honest, conflicts less frequent, and misunderstandings are easier to resolve. I watched my own interactions change, less defensiveness, less criticism, and more space for empathy. An unexpected benefit was improved physical health. Anger and resentment are surprisingly taxing on the body. I noticed fewer headaches, better sleep, and even lower blood pressure after I stopped clinging to old grievances. It's incredible how emotional freedom can translate into physical well-being. Our minds and bodies are deeply connected, and letting go of blame showed me just how much energy we can reclaim by shifting our inner dialogue. Another tool I relied on was mindfulness. Whenever a situation triggered blame, I paused, took a deep breath, and asked myself, is holding on to this serving me, or is it keeping me stuck? Sometimes just that moment of awareness allowed me to release tension and respond calmly. Over time, these small mindful moments created a habit of choosing peace over reactivity. It wasn't always easy, but each choice built momentum, creating a life that felt lighter and more joyful. I also began to appreciate the role of gratitude in healing. When we focus on what's going well, family, friends, nature, even small daily joys, the urge to blame diminishes. Gratitude shifts the lens from scarcity to abundance, from resentment to appreciation. I started a simple practice of noting 3 things I was thankful for each day. Some days, it was as simple as a sunny morning or a smile from a neighbor. Gradually, this practice rewired my mind, making me less reactive to minor irritations and more resilient in the face of challenges. Finally, I want to emphasize that this journey is ongoing. Letting go of blame doesn't mean perfection, it means commitment to self-growth. Some days are easier than others. Sometimes old habits creep back, and that's okay. What matters is recognizing the pattern and choosing differently, over and over. Life begins to feel more expansive, less heavy, and infinitely more peaceful when we embrace this mindset. Stopping blame isn't about ignoring reality or pretending life is fair. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your joy. By accepting responsibility for your own reactions, practicing forgiveness, setting boundaries, and cultivating gratitude, life begins to heal from the inside out. Now that we've explored these middle steps, adjusting expectations, practicing forgiveness, protecting our energy, and embracing gratitude, we're ready to look at the final aspects of this transformation. These are the strategies that solidify this mindset and help you live each day with a lighter heart and a renewed sense of freedom. As we move into the final part of this journey, it's important to understand that letting go of blame also opens the door to self-compassion. For years, I held myself to impossible standards, expecting perfection and then blaming myself when I fell short. When I stopped blaming others, I realized I had been blaming myself, too. Treating myself with kindness and patience became a natural extension of releasing resentment toward others. I learned that self-compassion isn't selfish, it's essential. When we forgive ourselves, we create inner space to fully enjoy life and connect meaningfully with others. Another vital realization was the power of presence. When we dwell on past wrongs or imagine future grievances, we rob ourselves of the current moment. By staying present, we notice the beauty and simplicity of life, the laughter of grandchildren, a neighbor's friendly wave, the warmth of sunlight on our skin. I started small, pausing to breathe deeply, to savor a cup of tea, to listen fully when someone spoke to me. Over time, these moments added up, and I found that the urge to blame naturally diminished. The present moment has a remarkable way of grounding us, making grievances feel lighter and less urgent. Connection also deepened as I stopped blaming. Relationships that had been tense for years became easier to navigate. I could listen without judgment, respond without defensiveness, and communicate my feelings openly without aggression. Friends and family noticed the change, and often responded with warmth and understanding. The irony is that when we let go of blame, we don't just heal ourselves, we create a ripple effect that encourages healing in others, too. I also embraced the importance of curiosity. Instead of assuming someone's intentions were harmful, I began asking questions, seeking understanding, and looking for context. Why did this happen? What might they be going through? Curiosity replaced judgment, and empathy replaced resentment. This simple shift in perspective transformed conflicts into opportunities for understanding and growth. Of course, this transformation is not instantaneous. There are still days when old habits creep in, and the instinct to blame flares up. But now, I recognize these moments as signals rather than triggers. They remind me to pause, reflect, and choose a different response. Over time, choosing peace over blame becomes almost automatic, and the weight we once carried begins to lift. One of the most liberating outcomes of this practice is a renewed sense of freedom. Freedom from grudges, from toxic cycles, from endless what-ifs and if-onlys. Life feels lighter when we release the past and focus on the present. It's a freedom that money, possessions, or even achievements cannot buy. The healing comes from within, and it's accessible to anyone willing to take the first step. I also want to highlight the joy that comes from living without blame. Small pleasures become more vivid: a quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a favorite hobby. Life feels fuller, more vibrant, and surprisingly effortless. By letting go of resentment, we free ourselves to experience the richness of life, rather than seeing everything through the lens of what went wrong. So, as you reflect on your own life, remember that stopping blame is not about ignoring injustice or pretending people don't hurt us. It's about reclaiming your energy, protecting your peace, and focusing on what truly matters: your happiness, your health, your relationships, and your inner calm. Each choice to release blame is a step toward a life that feels lighter, brighter, and more joyful. I encourage you to try this consciously. Start with one situation where you've been holding onto resentment. Take a deep breath, consider the perspective of others, forgive, and release. Notice the shift in how you feel afterward. With each small step, life begins to heal in ways you may not have imagined. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experiences. Share in the comments how letting go of blame has changed, or could change, your life. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for regular inspiration on living a calmer, more peaceful life. Remember, the power to heal your life has always been within you. Letting go of blame isn't just a lesson, it's a gift you give yourself every single day. Here's to embracing peace, choosing joy, and living each moment fully, free from the weight of the past. Your journey toward healing starts the moment you decide to release what no longer serves you. Here's to living your best, most peaceful life, at any age.